Here in Missouri, we are expecting a major ice storm with high possibilities of power losses. So I am not going to fire up my freeze dryer until the threat of power losses is over, because I don't want something halfway through and then the power to go out and ruin what's in the freeze dryer. So what I thought I'd do is, I was digging around the other day. Someone asked me to dig something out and do a video on it of a previously done freeze-dried item, and I couldn't find it, by the way. I got to get some organization to my freeze-dried food. But I came across this raw hamburger that I freeze-dried just when I first got my freeze dryer, because the date on this is July 14th, 2019. So this is over 5 years old, about 5.5 years old, raw hamburger. I had to look up the original video I did on this to find out more information about the hamburger, because I didn't put the weight on here and I didn't put, the fat content. And this, it was, according to the video I did, it was 93%, 7% fat. So 93% lean, if that makes sense. And so I'm curious how this has held up over 5.5 years. So let me get some dishes out and let's open this up. Now in the video I said I used packaged 2 pounds of, or freeze-dried 2 pounds of hamburger, but I did take a little bit of that out to reconstitute for that video, which is a very poor quality video, by the way. I just started out doing this. And so it's just under 2 pounds of hamburger here, I would imagine. Or ground beef, as some would call it. Let's see what I put in there. Oh, I didn't get it open all the way. Didn't get past my heat seal. There we go. Okay, let's do this. Smell test is really good. I don't smell nothing off on that. So there's my chunks of beef. We'll just rehydrate all of this. And I had one of the Harvest Right free oxygen absorbers in there. Pretty big one. But hopefully it did its job. I want to break some of this apart. Oh yeah, nice and crispy still. All right, let's get some cold water and get this going. Some cool water out of the tap. I'm just kind of covering it. It might get a little bit watery. I haven't really ever brought back raw meat. So I'm just gonna, that's 2 cups of water. That'll be way too much. I'm just gonna put that in there. Cover that. We'll let that sit for a while. So I'll see you after that rehydrates. I'll kind of let you know how long it takes. Let's see, what is it? It's about 24 minutes past the hour right now. We'll see how long that takes. I'll be right back. Okay, I've kept that mostly submerged for half an hour. About halfway through that half an hour, I came in and just flipped the pieces over. They're starting to get soft on the outside, but I can still feel hardness on the inside. So what I think I'm going to do is take it out of this water, because I don't want it to get too waterlogged. See if we can't break this up and help encourage that to rehydrate. I'm just squishing that up. Yeah, it's definitely dry in the middle still. And we could probably have left that overnight, but then I'm afraid it would be all waterlogged. We don't want waterlogged ground beef. What I'm going to do here, make a little well, get a little bit more water. From this point, we need to be very careful on how much water we put in that. And that's going to work nicely. I can see that. That's going to work perfect. All right. I'm kind of happy with that. I still do feel some dried chunks in there. But it's starting to hold its shape like ground beef should. Like fresh ground beef should. So what I'm going to do is what we do. We just let that sit for half an hour, right? Soaked in water. Now I've just spent a few minutes here kneading this and adding water slowly. So I think what I'm going to do is, don't want to waste any of this ground beef. Just take that like that. Leave it in a patty like that. This is for my own consumption, so don't you worry about me picking that off the table. And I'm going to leave that sit for another half hour, and I'll be back in half an hour. I'm going to cover that with some plastic wrap after I take my gloves off. I'll see you in half an hour. Okay, so what I decided to do in that half hour was, I learned a lesson from this, and I want to share that lesson with you guys. In the early days, back in 2019, there was not a lot of information out there. There were a couple of pretty good Facebook groups, but really nothing was online like YouTube of any great channels that had information. So we all kind of winged it back then. And I packaged this hamburger, and I did not write down the weight of the hamburger prior to freeze drying. The only reason I know I started out with 2 pounds is because I happened to mention in the video that I had 2 pounds of a hamburger. But I think I packaged it 1 pound. I cut that block of hamburger in half and put half in each bag for free, the Mylar bags. So I'm thinking it was 1 pound. So anyway, what I did was I took that ground beef and added enough water to that to bring it up to about 1 pound. And it looks about right. So the lesson is, when you're freeze drying something like raw ground beef, you'll want to break it up. I would break it up in 1 pound blocks and freeze dry it that way. That way when I took that block out of the freeze dryer, no, each block weighs 1 pound. I would package it that way and write on the bag 1 pound of raw ground beef. That way we know when it comes to rehydrating, we would add our ground beef, add enough water to bring it up to the pound, and we'd know everything. Once we got it all incorporated and soaked in, we would have our 1 pound of ground beef. That's a long-winded lesson, but really it's an important lesson to learn. So I got 1 pound here, and I've rehydrated it, brought it up to 1 pound. Let me get my gloves. And so let's kind of look at what the texture is now. I know when I was mixing that up, after I put the total weight of 1 pound in there with the water, it felt a bit soggy. But then, I don't know how much actual ground beef I had to start off with. And to me that still feels a little bit moist. But we are going to fry that up and we'll see how it comes out like. So let me get my skillet out and I'll be right back. Alright, let's put that on medium high. Press start. I want to make some sloppy joes with this. So let's put that ground beef in there. I mean, you can see it. It does kind of look like ground beef. Not as pink as it was when we took it out of the package, but meat never is. So let's grill this up and see what it comes out like. I'll switch that up to high. We'll get it going. Oh, it's sizzling like it's supposed to. I got high hopes. Get some nice brown texture on the bottom of that and we'll stir it up. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Browning up nicely. Alright, let's get a taste of that. We are good. Alright, let me get that. Try and get a close up of that so you can see what it looks like. So what do you think of that? I am tickled to death with that. Let's put my manly sauce in there. Turn that down to medium. Okay, there we go. I cooked me up some French fries and got my 5.5-year-old ground beef here mixed into a sloppy joe mix. And I am hungry. So let's see how it came out. Oh yeah. You would never guess that was 5.5 years old. Never in your wildest dreams. 5.5 years old in a dried steak. That is delicious. So I'm going to enjoy my lunch here. But before I do, I'm going to sign off. So we learned a lesson. When you're freeze drying raw meats, especially raw ground beef, weigh it before and separate it on your freeze dryer trays so you know the weight of each section. Package it after it's freeze dried and write on the package what the weight, the reconstituted weight would be. That way, when it comes 5.5 years later, you don't have to remember what the size of the package was. And you just add enough water to bring it up to that weight and work that water in. What I did was let it soak for about half an hour. That kind of softened the outside of the patties, the squares. And then I drained off the water and just kind of worked the moist, wet outside exterior into the center of it, which was really crunchy. And then slowly added water to that, you know, till it all come together. So if we were doing it with weight wise, probably what I would do is just take out, soak the hamburger. Actually, just put your bowl on the scale, throw your hamburger in there, throw the water in there to bring it up to weight. Mix it up as best you can, and letting it soak in between mixes and stuff until it is where you can work it and squish it kind of like a dough and knead it, and it comes back perfectly. And then fry it up, and it came back fried up perfectly. Not a hint of rancidity. And you would have never guessed that that was 5.5 years old. You just never would. So I'm going to enjoy this off camera. I look forward to seeing you. Wish me luck on this big ice storm we're going to get. All of us here in Missouri, and then east of Missouri as well. It looks like it's going to go all the way across the country. We're in for some bad weather. So wish us luck on that, and I look forward to seeing you next time.